Welcome to tonight's Red in NYC interview. I am extremely pleased to be joined by Arthur Rosenfield, who is a bit of a New York City legend in the real estate world. Welcome, Arthur. Thank you so much for joining us this evening.
Thank you, Carly. It's great to be here with the Red NYC people, and I'm looking forward to having this conversation.
Absolutely. Before we jump into the meat of tonight's interview, I have a few sponsors to thank. We have Legacy Builders, Eco Safety Consultants, Clean to Clean, Real Estate Promos, NYREM View, Hydrotech Environmental, Property Shark, City Bay Capital, Remax 100, Champion Elevator, DNA Construction Advisors, Skyline Scaffolding, and CNA Seneca Construction. So thank you to all the organizations that make Red NYC events possible. Now, a bit about Arthur. We could start with a good half hour on Arthur's bio alone, but I am going to give you an extremely condensed version because I think it's much more interesting to hear it from Arthur himself, as you can provide a little bit of color on your own background. But as a baseline, for anyone listening who is not familiar, Arthur has been widely successful both in business and in real estate over the course of his 52-year career. He has been the executive for multi-billion-dollar companies. He has been on the board of several chambers of commerce. And tonight he is the president and CEO of the National Realty Club, along with the director of several chamber organizations, including the Greater New York City Chamber of Commerce, which has over 30,000 members. So Arthur, I know that's just scratching the surface. Why don't you give us a brief synopsis in your own words of your career?
Well, that's a great way to get started. I was the founder of the Long Island City Astoria Chamber of Commerce, which I began in 2007. And now, as you say, the president and CEO of the very prominent National Realty Club, which has a very important history. I also have a close relationship with the Red Apple Group, which is, as everyone knows, John Katsimatidis was the founder of that and ran for mayor for the city of New York in 2013. And I have a close relationship with Red Apple Group. I think that the important part of the transition of my life came when the internet started to evolve, and I became a developer and investor in internet services, and built one of the largest worldwide internet services called BizWiz at the time, and ClickIt and City Entree and a few others, and that really gave me a lot of. It enabled me to, because the internet is such an important thing today. Being a pioneer in that, starting in 1992, gave me a great ability to create a network of people and have a city. So, you know, my career has been, as you say, storied as an entrepreneur and as an executive, and contributing to the fabric of what we know as New York City. And I probably should mention at this point that along the way I became a member of the board of directors for the Greater New York Chamber of Commerce, the Asian Real Estate Association of America, the Riverhead Chamber of Commerce. I've been an advisor to the board for the Caribbean American Chamber of Commerce, and of course we're members of other organizations. And I'm very active in associations, community development, and working with the business community and the real estate community.
So I think that sort of fabric, that interweaving of all those different types of people and different lines of business, both real estate and otherwise, gives you a very unique perspective on the city. So kind of jumping from all of that, what do you think the current state of New York is today? We obviously have a lot of challenges, but how would you classify them, and what do you think is next for the city?
Well, there's a mix. You know, New York City has been through a very difficult period of time, not just because of the pandemic, but starting back with legislation that was passed in 2019, in the summer of 2019, when we started to slip into a real estate recession. It's been a very challenging time, And there's a continuum on the one end of the spectrum where you have a lot of uncertainty, and on the other end of the spectrum where you have a lot of predictability. And the issue today is there's very little predictability. And we with the National Realty Club, we're making a lot of changes. And one of those changes is that we're bringing in new board members that have great experience with New York City for long periods of time and have great notoriety in the city. Yesterday, we elected Diane Ramirez, who is a part of the Halstead and the Tara group, and part of Kent Swig's organization. Kent is now on the board of directors for the National Realty Club. He was elected last week because he has a great interest in the kinds of stuff. And when we talk about getting back to normal, we like to think about what was the level in 2019. So she was saying yesterday that that September of this past month, they were basically in deal offers being accepted at the same level that they were in September 2000 in 2019. So that was very encouraging. I think that.
And is that from a transaction perspective or leasing, or what kind of deals specifically do you mean?
Primarily residential deals. I mean, you and I haven't talked about the commercial real estate yet, but these are residential deals, and everybody is really very interested in, when people are going to come back to New York City. And, that means the residents and the people who work in the office buildings. And, that's another topic. And, it's kind of a favorite topic of mine because I really like to talk about the fact that property values in real estate is more a function of human nature than it is of some other spectrum. And human nature basically is people come to New York City because it has been a beacon and a magnet for people from all over the world who really believe in themselves and they want to live here. And they create the demand. The demand creates the value of the property. And that's been going on for 100 years. And the real estate community has been investing in that demand, and they believe in that quality of life. And for 100 years, there's been huge investments in every type of real estate. It's not government making the investment, it's the real estate people who believe in the community. And
Arthur, talk to me about this concept of placemaking. It's something you've been very involved in, both in Long Island City, and I know you mentioned that it is going to be an integral part of the recovery of New York City. What is placemaking, and how do we put that into effect?
Just reverse the phrase. It's making a place. And the way you make a place is to understand what the place is and what its natural resources are, and what its what the people do, and what you want the place to be. And what placemaking is a process of bringing the stakeholders together. And the stakeholders are everybody who has something to do with the community, the real estate investors, the owners of property, the community itself, the civic leaders, the educators, everybody who has something to do with that community. And you bring them together and you start to form your story and what will make the place. And then the key thing, as I learned, is that you have to be able to attract investment, and you have to be able to attract the talent class. And you have to create a really exciting story that makes people want to live and work in the place, and attract other people over a period of time. So what we did in Long Island City was a series of symposiums with these stakeholders.
And is this a formal committee structure or more town hearings? What are the symposiums entail? And then what's the follow-up to that? How do you actually put this into practice?
Well, in Long Island City, the Long Island City Astoria Chamber of Commerce which was me and the board members were the basic foundation committee. And we had David Wilk, who was an expert in placemaking, help us to guide us through the process. But it was really interesting because we brought together a lot of very important people. And, we kicked, just as an example, we kicked off the first symposium with an evening event. And I had Peter Vallone Sr., who was the speaker of the city council a few years before, and he had actually rewritten the charter for New York City, and which created the city council. And so he lives in Astoria, and I asked him to talk about what made Astoria the place that it was, and how did he approach it. And it was interesting because he really talked about safety and how he and his father had really created a safety. And some of what he did was we go back into New York City, safe streets, safe cities, that was under Dinkins and then Giuliani, where the safety factor became so important. So the focus was to create safety. And what he said was, if we create a safe place for families, they will come from all over the world. And they did. So, he helped to establish the Variety Boys and Girls Club, and that was a way to bring kids off the street and give them a better alternative for their future.
So it sounds like safety is a key pillar to reviving New York City in this next wave. We touched on some of the biological advances, which are fascinating how quickly they're moving, as you noted. And we touched on the placemaking, but it sounds like safety is really one of these core foundational principles of placemaking. Would you agree that that's one of the key things we need to address?
Totally correct. Essential. There will not be a revival of New York City until the safety issue is fixed. I can say that, right now, the people who are in our government seem to not be accepting the fact that we have a lot of crime, and that is creating a very negative situation, that people just don't even want to go. Listen, we're a dense city. That's our strength. But we have to understand that tourism, for example, was a critical part of the income for not just for the tax base, but for the income for small businesses, for retailers, for restaurants. And we have a terrible problem. We can't attract tourism. Until we fix our problem with safety in the city, we are not going to have a revitalization. It's going to take longer. And I really don't think yet that the government fully comprehends the loss of taxes, the loss of people leaving the city. I don't think they understand the impact of what could happen, and then how much longer it will take to rebuild the city under the next administration. It's a very difficult juggernaut. So yes, you're correct. And I can say that in the placemaking process, after Peter Vallone Sr. focused on it, for the next day, every speaker talked about safety as being the number one issue that I have this vision for New York City.
So I'm hearing a very clear theme of collaboration. It sounds like all different elements of the city are going to have to come together to make New York what it should be and what it will be again.
Yes, in fact, one of the things we've done with NRC is to create a center for collaboration, cooperation, and innovation. Because in addition to the placemaking process, we have things like energy, where there are bills both in the city and not bills, laws in the city and the state that are going to require the building owners to retrofit and bring the energy efficiency to higher levels. And there's a thing called PACE, which is the multi-billion-dollar loan program that is coming out. So we want to be able to deal with sustainability as part of this Center for Collaboration, Cooperation, and Innovation. So again, taking a leadership role, because again, my vision comes from the lens that I have, which is from chambers of commerce and community and business development, not just from real estate.
So let's take a step back for those who are tuned in who may not know the background here. What is the National Realty Club? Obviously, it's incredibly famous organization, but how did it start and where do you see it going?
Well, it had an incredible start with Harry Helmsley, who is probably one of the most iconic people in New York City, who began his career in real estate, I think, in the 1920s. And you know, many of the most important buildings in the city of New York, like the Empire State Building and many others, were owned by Harry, who was a developer and an acquirer of buildings, and he had some strategies for doing that. 1947, he and his friends started a club where they could meet in his restaurant, and I think it might have even been every day, or at least very regularly, to exchange ideas and deals and figure out how to work with the city and all the things that real estate people know about as property owners. So he started the organization in 1947, which was just after World War II, and the city at that time was going through many of the same kinds of decisions and stresses and strains. Where are the veterans going to live, and how are people going to have jobs? And there was a lot going on in 1947 in New York City. So that's really the history. And then it continued for years and years and years as a very prominent organization. We have REBNY, which is a very strong organization, and CHIP, which is a very strong organization. And I think the third was really the NRC, a little bit different because it's a club rather than a large association. And you have to be invited, you have to go through a vetting process. It's primarily for CEOs and building owners and property owners and all of the executives and C-suite executives who are in and around the real estate industry, people who are very dedicated and committed. We've made a lot of changes. It was an organization that it had individual memberships, and we now have added 6 very significant corporate membership programs to enhance the ability of the organization to have strength and to have a strong voice. And we're reaching out to create alliances with other organizations in a very important way, a very structured way. So the organization, like every other organization, when the pandemic came, people couldn't meet. It had become a very important place for people to a very important organization for a club for people to meet for lunch and have great luncheon speakers and network. We've changed all that, but during the pandemic period, it lost some of the momentum, and now we are definitely bringing it back.
So how could someone get involved who's not currently involved? Do they reach out to you, to the website? Maybe their senior leadership in the organization? What's the right way to be part of this?
Well, we actually have 2 websites now. The old one, which is at nationalrealtyclub.org, and the new one, which is at nationalrealtyclub.net. And there you can find the history, and you can find applications, and you can find a lot of other information about how to get the NRC advantage. I am always available, and my contact information is on those websites. You need to submit an application. The application is then vetted by some 2 or 3 people from the board who contact you, and we really just have to go through this approval process. And that's just, even for members or for board members or anything else. The board has been expanded. The bylaws are being changed. We're just making a lot of changes. Success.
So how does that organization connect with Red Connect, which is another organization that I know you are involved in? Give me a bit of background on Red Connect and how you see that kind of linking forces with National Realty Club or maybe the Chamber of Commerce. How do you see all of those playing together?
Well, there are two great other organizations in real estate, or actually, I guess three with Red in NYC, the Rebney certainly, and CHIP. We are not competitive. We're a club and we operate differently, and it's a different kind of membership. And we have a very different mission. One of the things that I brought to the board of directors when I took over this role was that I wanted to reach out and create formal alliances with other organizations, chambers of commerce, other real estate organizations, et cetera. And I have reached out and we have formally made an agreement with the Greater New York Chamber of Commerce, where I'm also on the board. And we have what's called an alliance membership program. And people can become a member of both organizations. And if you're a member of both organizations, then you're part of a committee which will be creating our policy for how we want to address the need to educate and advocate. And we can't lobby. We're a 501c6 organization, so we're limited in the kinds of things we can do in terms of politics. But we need to educate. We need to advocate. And Mark Jaffe and I will chair this. We've also reached out to other organizations. I'm in contact with Jay Martin at CHIP, and he's in, and others are in the process of evaluating. But we're bringing in chambers of commerce, business organizations, civic organizations, and financial organizations. We've had conversations with the Mortgage Bankers Association of New York. And see, I think this is different from the kind of thing that Kathy Wild is doing with the partnership, where she's got the top 100 companies. I'm really looking for the relationships and the voice for the small business people and the financial institutions that have so much to lose if the loans are in default. It's really a serious problem.
For sure. So it sounds like Red Connect would be an alliance along with these other organizations, because it really is going to take everyone coming together.
Yes, Selman has agreed to be part of this alliance, and again, there's a formal process of doing it. Selman has created something called the Red Connect, which I think we're going to talk about. It's a membership organization. So we have everybody has the same issues in common. These are not political issues, these are business issues. So we want to focus on the importance of the business issues. It's income for businesses, jobs, 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 and getting people back to work.
Agreed. So you briefly mentioned Red Connect's membership program, and I know this is something new that Red NYC and Selman are piecing together. How do you see that adding value to the business community and kind of becoming a more integral part of bringing real estate people together?
Well, first let me say that Salman Yellison is a very creative, innovative guy, and he's very bright, and he has brought a lot of thousands of real estate people together for his networking events and his other kinds of galas, and he does a great job with that. And this red branding that he does and is really going to be expanded. And he and I have had a lot of conversation about it. I've encouraged him to do it. Red Connect is a membership organization that he's working to build. It's a paid membership. You have to be, senior people to be part of it. He's very interested in the construction business and bringing the construction and contracting people together and others together with the developers and owners. And I was in that business for a long time, so I really understand the importance of membership organizations. BizWiz was a membership organization, and We had tremendous participation from all over the world. It's not easy to build a paid membership organization. You really have to have a defined difference of what makes you valuable to the members. But I am absolutely certain that Red Connect is going to become one of the prominent forces in commercial forces in New York City real estate, because anytime you can bring buyers and sellers together, you've got a good model.
Agreed. Will be very interesting to see how that grows and progresses. Thank you for giving us some background on it.
He's also not just limited to New York City, because his plan includes expanding to other cities and also other countries. So, he's a smart guy, very ambitious, and people who can have a vision like that can create the buckets and then fill the buckets in.
I agree, and I'll share a quick side story from my perspective. Through Red NYC, I actually interviewed a developer from Portugal, and after the interview, it was amazing how many people in New York City were connected in some way or had interest, and kind of how that grew from what seemed to be a very unusual connection on the front end. So to your point earlier, it's a collaboration, it's the integration of all these different pieces coming back together that's going to make New York City even better, right? Or what it was, I guess.
Partly, it's a great story. People of goodwill will always find a way to do business together.
Mm-hmm. Agreed. So on that sort of Portugal story, are you seeing foreign investors coming into the city? Is there less involvement? And that could be from real estate, from business. How are you seeing America, and specifically New York City, being viewed by the foreign investment community right now?
Well, actually, I'm very involved in international area through some online things and some WhatsApp things, and through a business I have that I've always had an international business connection, and certainly the EB-5 program creates investment. I think that there's a lot of challenges ahead. New York City has to compete for investment. And we have to deal with this issue of safety in order to be able to compete effectively. There's a lot of question about should we invest in New York City or not. The answer really is it depends on your perspective and how deep your cash pockets are, because there is going to be a period of pain, and we're all going to have to deal with that period of pain. It could be 2 months, 6 months. People talk about vaccines. I don't think the vaccine's the magic answer. I think therapeutics is going to trump vaccine. The fact is that we have the EB-5 program, which encourages investment from all over the world, not just China. The focus has been China, but from all over the world, the capital can flow into a very safe government, into a very safe financial system, into a system where we are a system of laws, we are a system of order. People feel safe putting their money here. I think that there is we are competing. We're competing against Florida. We're competing against Texas. We're competing against Tennessee. We're competing against all kinds of other places. We have to compete. We have to make sure, this is what placemaking is about. What's our story? And what's our predictability? And what's going to happen? And we're in charge of that, not the newspapers, not the people who want to drive the values of properties down so they can buy them cheap. We are the people who are in charge of our fate. So the most important thing to recognize is you have to understand the qualities of New York City that have been built over 100 years, that have given it the great strength that it has, the ability to attract the talent, the ability to attract the businesses, the greatest restaurants in the world, the greatest theater in the world, the greatest everything, the greatest people. If you want to be part of that, you're going to want to invest in New York City.
And I think you perfectly summarized the value proposition of the city. That it's not just one element, it's how it all comes together. through the arts, through the real estate, through the business, through the diversity. So let's take it in our last few minutes here, a different direction. Have the last 7 months changed you personally in any way? Your
Absolutely.
lifestyle, your business? What will you take away as positives moving forward through this experience?
Absolutely. Listen, I was not unfamiliar with electronic communication because I actually constructed a lot of it in my internet development years. But what we've all learned, just like we learned how to use email, we all learned how to use the new technologies. And so that's made it possible to reach out to other people in different ways. It is not going to replace the personal experience and the triumphs of your life when you're being mentored by people, or all the things, the training, the conference room experiences. Nothing's going to change. It's all going to come back. It's going to be like putting your shoes on again. And but in terms of my life, I can tell you that I have made more contacts and expanded my relationships in so many ways. I can't even begin to tell you how great it is and how happy I am. And I'm going to just say that there was one series of meetings that the Certified Financial Advisors Institute ran. It was a 3-day program that I was invited to participate in, and it triggered something which had a very important impact on my life, because you're asking me about how it's changed my life. And because certified financial advisors live a kind of lonely life, and they have clients, but a lot of them are independent. The institute focused one of its sessions on the kind of the psychological issues, and they were talking about how you go about doing an assessment of yourself and what your values are. And I'm a value creator. I like to make the rain, and I like to make transformative change happen. I've always been that way in my whole life. But as I listened to the person who was talking about what you should do during this pandemic, the advice was that you really had to understand better your experience and your knowledge, because those are the two things that people want. That's what they value. And so I went through a very strict review of my life and what creates the value, the experience that I have, and what creates the knowledge, and where am I expert? Where is my experience expert, and where is my knowledge expert? And that word is a tough hurdle. And I started making a list of not just the glowing generalities, but how did I get to that? And where did that expertise come from? And how do I understand value? And how do I understand negotiation? Whatever it is that gives me value. And I would say that everybody should go through this process of, while we still have time being home, of understanding your experience and your knowledge and your value. It's changed a lot.
I think that's a really great perspective on downtime and how it's actually not downtime. It's
Oh
being
no,
used to move
this has
people
been
forward,
uptime for me.
right?
This has been
Exactly.
uptime for me.
Very pivotal if used correctly. So I think that's great advice
And
to everybody listening.
yeah, let me just take it one step further. I started to make
Sure.
appointments in New York City. I started to make appointments in New York City again, and I found it was very hard to make 2 appointments in one day. So I said to
Right.
myself, I think what I'll do is I'll create a Tuesday and Thursday event at 5 o'clock at the Tudor City Steakhouse every Tuesday and Thursday, 5 o'clock, and I'll invite the people who are members of the National Realty Club and other organizations, and CollabNet, and the Asian Real Estate Association of America, where I'm on the board, and some others. And I'll make it a place where people can be every Tuesday and Thursday at 5 o'clock. So you can at least do 2 things in New York City on Tuesday and Thursday. One, have an appointment with someone, and the other, be at our event. But bringing people back to the city to get reconnected is so important. We had a meeting last Thursday. Ken Swig was there, and a lot of other people. Just terrific business conversation, interaction. I'm very proud of what we're doing. Everybody wears masks. and we are reasonably distant. But
That's
it's
great efficiency, though. I think that was a really creative approach to that, right? Where you have a set amount of time, set days, and
I'm channeling Harry Helmsley. He brought people together personally to exchange ideas, information, deals, whatever. So I'm channeling Harry Helmsley. And by the way, John Catsimatidis is the same way as Harry Helmsley. They have the same values, the same deal mentality, the same view of real estate. So, you know, I have the privilege of being part of Harry Helmsley's channel and John Catsimatidis' channel.
We've covered a lot of very good information tonight. Are there any other closing thoughts you'd like to share before we conclude?
Yeah, I think it's just very important to have faith in your own judgment and to look at the future of New York City and how you can personally help to bring things back. And staying out on the East End of Long Island isn't the solution. You're going to be back sooner rather than later. I've left New York City and come back, and we don't want to lose people. We don't want to have we don't want to lose the magic of New York City. So trust your own judgment.
Excellent. Thank you so much for all of your insights tonight. This has been a lot of fun. We really appreciate your depth of experience and your vision for the city moving forward. We'll be sure that we link all of the things that we talked about, the different interviews and the National Realty Club, Red Connect, et cetera, in the comments of the video, so everyone knows how to find these great organizations and get involved however they might be able to.
And just one parting comment, Carly, because I know that you're an important vice president at Marcus Millichap. Congratulations on your career and good work. Thank you for what you do.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. It's a great industry and one I'm very proud to be part of as well. So happy we got to connect. Thank you to everyone listening. That was Red and NYC's interview with Arthur Rosenfield. We hope to see you all again very soon.